fought the enemies of humanity across 1,000 worlds. No respite, no remorse, no mercy. We are the wrath of the Emperor, his angels of death. But the Imperium lies broken, its armies scattered and reeling. Our foes rise to drag us down, and the galaxy has been torn asunder. On the world of Kronos, we make our stand. We are the Blood Ravens. There is no victory to claim here, only vengeance to enact. Whilst even one of us lives, we fight. For only in death does duty end.
What a great trailer. Welcome to my channel. My name is Nakamura and I've been a hardcore RTS fan for over 2 decades. For most of this, I've been a competitive player, tournament host, commentator, and a game designer. To be perfectly honest, I've been jaded with RTS as of late. After StarCraft 2, newer games are lucky if they make the break-even point, with many of them falling flat or even getting cancelled. Games like Stormgate, Battle Aces, Homeworld 3, and Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin make me question whether decision makers in the industry are at all in touch with what players expect from their games. Dawn of War 3 certainly fits right in with that list. My current view is that we are not in a true RTS renaissance, but that it's an era of quantity over quality. If we're being generous, there have been some minor successes in the last decade, like Age of Empires 4, Company of Heroes 3, Tempest Rising, Halo Wars 2, Sins of a Solar Empire 2, and my comfort game that I cover a lot on my channel, Spellforce 3. These have at least done okay, so it's definitely not all doom and gloom. But really, this is an age of remasters. People are nostalgic, and the classics were definitely high quality for their time. So that's what sells. Between the Age of Empires Definitive Editions, Age of Mythology Retold, Command & Conquer Remastered Collection, and now Dawn of War Definitive Edition, we got some of the most cost-effective projects that I think every studio with a beloved older IP should consider. The problem with new RTS games is that it's super expensive to make them. There's no out-of-the-box engine like Unreal or Unity that can handle the core systems that these games require. That's not to say it can't be done, as some of the games I mentioned are in fact Unreal games. But for the effort required, you could go and make a much easier to make RPG game that has a much larger market than RTS does. We have an aging audience over here, and the new games don't do well enough to capture enough players, especially the younglings. Only grand strategy games like Total War Warhammer or Stellaris seem to be able to perform well enough to justify their high cost of production, which means that further titles are always to be expected. That's the kind of place the classic RTS genre developers wish they were in. I definitely want this to happen, and since you're here, I bet you do too. So, back to Dawn of War 4. Will it be able to break out from the genre's slump? It will take quite a lot of work to overcome the headwinds, including the bitter taste that Dawn of War 3 had left in fans' mouths. Perhaps the fact that it's not Relic developing the game might come as a shock to some, but I suspect Games Workshop decided it's no longer in their interest to license another game to them after what happened the last time. Although I do believe the backlash from the players was somewhat overblown, the end result is that Relic didn't go out of their way to fix the situation, and therefore the sentiment remains. I think they made a good RTS game, but not a good Dawn of War game. There are certain expectations that come with the territory that they didn't satisfy. Maybe I could expand on this topic in another video, though I'd have to do quite a bit of research first. The new developers are King Art Games, who are the team behind Iron Harvest. That game was received with moderate positivity, and they are familiar with Relic's formula for these types of games. King Art has also shown some understanding of the weaknesses of Dawn of War 3 and immediately promised historic Dawn of War gameplay, with base building and sync kills making a return. Hopefully the animations themselves will be more grounded in the universe this time around. In fact, for the sync kills, they're promising that every possible unit matchup will have some dynamically selected animations, making for as much as 10,000 combinations. They're also one-upping the predecessor by launching with 4 factions: Space Marines, Orcs, Necrons, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, who get their first debut in the franchise with this. Quite notably though, there's no Eldar. Give me back my space elves, please. The campaign can be played solo or in co-op, and we'll get 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3 in multiplayer, alongside a last stand mode. The few snippets of gameplay and screenshots we got of Dawn of War 4 also show they will be able to visually rival and maybe even outdo Dawn of War 3. The overall detail and fidelity is definitely higher, but I have to say that I find readability to be subpar from what they have shown so far. It likely has to do with the lighting. This is extremely important, as players shouldn't have to strain their eyes to make out what units and buildings are on the screen. They've got to make them pop more, and casting light at better angles and with different colors can do wonders for that. I will say though that this issue isn't reaching the same extent in all cases and needs to be looked at map by map. The UI shown also strongly suggests that the game will be built around WASD camera movement, which is rather unheard of in RTS games, but especially Dawn of War. I find it to be highly jarring that they're not aiming for grid layouts first and foremost. The buildings don't even seem to have hotkeys overlaid, which is frankly disappointing to see in 2025. The units don't seem to have HP or damage info in their selection. What is the UI team doing here? I'm very disappointed by these things. On the other hand, I find the Total War unit cards at the bottom to be nice, and I could say the same about the overhead icons about the units, as they help communicate what is what on a busy screen. Though ideally the icons shouldn't be necessary if the units are readable enough. The status icons on the unit cards are great as well. We can also note the huge maximum population shown in the UI, potentially allowing late game matches to be relatively large scale compared to the previous entries. One great concern I have, especially given that I'm such a multiplayer and tournament guy, is that they may not feature a replay or spectator mode. The reason for this is that they haven't included this in Iron Harvest, but this would be a huge mistake. Most importantly, replays are an essential tool for effective bug fixing in development and save a significant amount of time in the long term, as the game just deterministically plays back what happened, skipping the need to reproduce bugs manually. Secondly, multiplayer is a very important pillar to these games that fuels content creation and therefore community interest and longevity. If you can send your games to me, you can bet I will make cast videos, but more importantly, the big channels will too. If there is a live spectator mode, we can even talk about community tournaments with or without the developer support. The other reason I worry about this is that the developers actively talked down multiplayer in Zaid's interview, emphasizing their focus on the campaign. I'm linking the full video in the description.
I think one of the big things is that we have like a narrative background, and we always felt, story is very important, characters are very important, and also for Iron Harvest, the campaign was probably the part of the game that people like most, right? We did the survey, among RTS players when we did Iron Harvest, and a lot of them said, actually, the most important thing for me is the campaign, right? Not multiplayer, not competitive stuff. And so for us, it felt like, okay, we know that there's a lot of players who actually feel like campaign is the most memorable thing, or if they think about Dawn of War 1, they probably think more about campaign than other things. And, we are good at that, and we also like to do campaigns. And so let's go all out when it comes to the campaigns. And one of the first decisions we made was, instead of just having a Space Marine campaign, or maybe have one campaign where you play mostly Space Marines and then everybody else pops in every now and then. Let's actually have 4 big campaigns, one for each of the factions.
This may have been a miscommunication by the devs in the heat of the moment, and I do hope there will be some amount of baseline attention dedicated to multiplayer. That's not to say that the game must be built from the ground up for esports. In fact, I think that the most important things are to nail campaign and skirmish so that the majority of players can enjoy the story and those classic comp stomps. That's the stuff that absolutely has to be fun, with no room for excuses, as we can't expect more than 20% of the players to engage with multiplayer, especially on the regular. Without a broadly happy player base, multiplayer will never have viewership, making content creation in tournaments ineffective. But we do need the bare minimum tools to represent the game's multiplayer to the audience. This will be rewarded with a hardcore segment of the following that will play for years and promote the game until the very end. If these tools are missing though, I'm not going to run a tournament or record match casts where the players have to stream their point of view so that we can cast over that, and neither will most others. I truly hope I'm wrong, and we're getting replays and spectator mode though. Dawn of War 4 will be released somewhere in 2026. Which of the factions is your favorite, and what aspects of the game are you looking forward to the most? In the coming days, I'll be doing some Dawn of War Remastered live streams, while occasionally dropping Spellforge 3 casts, and maybe I'll look into Dawn of War 3 as I suggested. I'll also make more of these types of videos as we get news drops on Dawn of War 4. Feel free to subscribe for more if you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.